The Z fighters head off at their top speed, concerned at why the Saiyans are here now. They've made it here much earlier than they expected, and more so they are worried about the strength of the strongest Saiyan. They can all feel their legs shaking and their spirits breaking. As Tien struggles to come up with a plan, Yamcha is the one who speaks up, telling everyone that this isn't a complete loss yet. Yes, the strongest Saiyan is massively strong, but he also isn't so far above Tien, and that means they can win this, pointing out that the other two Saiyans, while they are strong, are around the same strength as them, if not only the smallest bit stronger, and with their training in the pendulum room, they know how to fight against an opponent who is slightly stronger than them. They can do this, they just need to follow a plan, and he actually has one in mind. Everyone's spirits perk up a little bit as they look to Yamcha for guidance. He explains how they should divide and conquer the Saiyans. Tien should be the forefront of their attack force, and if Tien holds the strongest Saiyan's attention, he won't interfere with the weaker Saiyans' fights, meaning that they can work in the background and steal the bases by knocking out or killing the weaker Saiyans, making sure that they have an opening where they can all jump the strongest Saiyan, either handicapping him or even killing him. Tien looks at Yamcha with some sense of pride in his friend, as the plan is sound but dangerous, since it requires the group splitting up, but with no idea of how long it will take Goku to get to the battlefield, or even if he's on his way yet. It's the best one they have. Tien making sure that everyone knows to stay out of his fight until they have dealt with the other two Saiyans, something everyone agrees with, as Chi-Chi now asks a question that everyone has been wondering: why are there 3 Saiyans? Asking, essentially, why is Raditz still alive? At this, Tien admits he isn't too sure, but Goku has his ways, and he must have seen something in the warrior and made the call to let him live, since he was a non-threat, something Tien right now is regretting doing, as he can feel the Saiyan has grown marginally stronger. But now isn't time to think about what they should have done, now is the time for action. Landing down in front of the Saiyans, who have stood in waiting for the scouters to pick up a high power level, and having locked onto the Z fighters coming their direction, they politely waited, as Vegeta looks at Raditz, asking which one of these people is Kakarot. The long-haired Saiyan, never making eye contact, scans through the group before looking back down to the ground with a solemn "he's not here." In this moment, Chi-Chi can't help but spot a black eye, bruises all over Raditz's body. Something has clearly gone down. But before she can even ask any questions, Nappa scoffs, using his scouters to read the power levels in front of him, shouting out to Raditz that he's a loser to have run away from this planet if this is all they have packing. But Raditz quietly remarks that they can hide their powers, so it's likely they aren't seeing a fraction of what they can truly do. Hearing this, Vegeta looks mildly impressed, thinking that ability could be useful, before ordering Raditz and telling Nappa to draw out their true powers, thinking to skip wasting Cyberman right now. Hearing this, the brute of a Saiyan smiles, cracking his knuckles, while Raditz, looking down at the ground still, walks forwards, Chi-Chi now understanding why her husband had let Raditz live, shouting out to Tien that herself and Gohan will fight the pineapple-haired one, if the others can manage to deal with the bald one. No one objects, and the group breaks off into 3, as Yamcha, Appa and Yajirobe stand in front of Nappa, Chi-Chi and Gohan ready to face down their own family, and Tien stares down Vegeta. The Prince of All Saiyans chuckles, asking the Triclops if he's wanting to go around, or is he going to wait for his friends like a smart person. But in the seconds that final word leaves Vegeta's mouth, Tien has closed the distance, going to gut check the Prince with all of his might. However, all his fist meets is palm, as the Saiyan leader chuckles with his scouter finally stopping beeping, as the energy rests at a firm 12k. The Prince smiles, telling the human it's impressive, and he understands why Raditz fled, but unfortunately, it's not enough to scare him, dropping his elbow into Tien's shoulder, but this is countered with the use of the 4 Witches technique, stopping the attack but taking both of Tien's left hands to do so, with Tien silently using his 4th hand to fire off a ki blast into Vegeta's face. While this does nothing but knock away the Prince ever so slightly, it initiates the full battle beginning. As Raditz and Nappa sit gawking in disbelief, Nappa doesn't get time to watch for long, as his scout picks up some growing power levels, turning to the trio of Appa, Yamcha and Yajirobe, who all charge him, Yamcha leading the pack, his ki alight as the bandit goes to knee the brute in the face, only for the large man to challenge it with a headbutt, the force of which almost shatters Yamcha's knee. However, Yamcha just fights on through the pain as he bares his fangs. With Nappa's vision obscured due to Yamcha's leg, the Saiyan gets to feel a sensation he can only describe as hell. With a foreign object entering his lower ribs and twisting, Nappa screams out in pain, allowing Yamcha to turn his body and slam his other foot into the side of Nappa's face, sending the alien sliding, which causes the foreign object lodged in his body to be forcefully ripped out, making Nappa grind his teeth. As he finally spots Upa shaking off blood from his spear, a stern look on his face, Nappa growls out in anger. He rushes forwards, only for another slashing feeling to cut along his back, as Yajirobe went in for a backstrike in hopes to sever the spine of this Saiyan, but it seems a normal sword is unable to slice through the Saiyan's armour. Upa realising that he had only cut the Saiyan's hide due to enhancing his spear with ki. These hit and run tactics are what Yamcha plans to use to bring down Nappa, the former desert bandits offering himself up as the perfect distraction, offering up his own body to allow Upa and Yajirobe to land small but devastating blows. Over with Gohan and Chi-Chi. Unlike their teammates, a fight has yet to break out. As Raditz stares down the other members of the Saiyan group, his scouts are going haywire, all the power levels going off around him, shocked to find that he is possibly, if not the weakest one here. He has not even taken note of his family sat in front of him, until Chi-Chi walks forward, asking her brother-in-law if he's alright, noting that she spots the bruises on his body and the black eye, asking what happened. The simple question makes the Saiyan freeze up, actively swinging the back of his palm towards the woman, but in a shocking display of power, his nephew stops the attack without flinching. As Raditz's scouter finally reads these two warriors' power levels, weirdly, Gohan's doesn't stop or rest, going up and down with no rhyme or reason, it seeming to rise up to 10k and the lowest being at 5k, wondering if his scouter is broken, but Raditz isn't given a chance to think, as Chi-Chi thanks her son before telling him to let go of his uncle's arm. The boy tilts his head but listens to his mother. Chi-Chi then looks back at Raditz, telling him that she can only assume that there is one reason her husband would leave him alive, and that's because he's not a monster. That's because he saw something in him which made him think he had a chance to change. Her husband has faced monsters. A monster took his best friend, his master, and so many people he cared about. There is no way Raditz can be a monster, as her husband kills them. So she wants to give him the choice. Take her hand and join them in this fight, waiting for his brother to come, or just to go and hide with Gohan, or die here on this battlefield. Raditz looks at Chi-Chi. Much like his big brother, he can see his mother in this woman. Even her hidden fury is plastered all over this woman's face, but a pain courses through his body, a broken rib. It reminds him of what Vegeta will do if he swaps sides. Looking on to all the fights around him, Raditz does the math, and he gambles that the Saiyans will win. This being confirmed when Gohan is almost slapped by his uncle, but Chi-Chi, whose power rests well above Raditz's, stops the attack and apologises to her Goku, before delivering a gut check that knocks not only the wind out of Raditz, but also all of the rations he had gotten to eat over the last few days. Falling down to his knees, Chi-Chi asks once more if he is sure this is the path he wants to walk. Raditz, on the ground, coughs out only one word: no. Having filled in the blanks, Gohan delivers a kick up to the underside of his uncle's chin, knocking him out cold. Gohan lowers his foot, having delivered the final attack, and the mother and son share a smile, as Chi-Chi, looking at Raditz, understands there's more to this story than she can understand, and truly he deserves a chance to speak to his brother. So asks her son to take the man away from the battlefield and stay by his side and protect him, and if he does wake up and start being mean, just to knock him out again. The boy nods, picking up his uncle and flying away from the battlefield. Chi-Chi gets a chance to survey the battlefield herself now, as she spots that the boys are putting up a good fight against Nappa, but they clearly can't put him down, and he is dishing out just as much as he is taking. Yajirobe is even being forced to retreat in an attempt to gain some strength, while Tien is still struggling against Vegeta. Chi-Chi's first instinct is to help Tien. She's seeing him getting beat badly, only staying into the fight thanks to his martial arts skills, but it's clear Vegeta is slowly dissecting all of these tricks in Tien's arsenal. But the Triclops is nothing if not resourceful. and he has more than a handful of techniques. He has 4. He pulls everything and anything he's ever learned out on the opponent. He uses the solar flare to blind his opponent, the 4 witches technique to try and land more hits. These tricks work for a short time, allowing Tien to truly get some good hits in, but you can tell he's on a timer, as Vegeta makes the gap in power more and more present, as his combat experience alone is enough to close the gap in technique. Chi-Chi is about to jump in and help Tien. The plan can be damned, but when the sight of Nappa about to unleash a blast on Yajirobe, which will definitely kill the man, her body moves on instinct, flying in at her top speed, putting both of her feet on top of Nappa's head and punching down atop it with all of her force, sending the breaker cannon into the ground. The moment of pause allows Upa to land another stab into Nappa's arm, the brute of a Saiyan now being covered in stab wounds, and is not wanting to deal with this anymore, as the pain he is feeling fuels his next attack, as he throws Chi-Chi off him and charges towards Upa, ready to unleash an arm crash, planning to take the spear wielder's head off, and it would succeed if not thanks to Yamcha, who kicks into Nappa's arm with all of the might he has. The clash only lasts for a second, but in that time, Yamcha can feel himself losing, as his bones and tendons begin to rip and tear as if he was about to lose his leg. Nappa laughs at this pathetic attempt to take on an Saiyan elite in a physical match, pouring more and more power into his attack, but Yamcha ignores every word that leaves Nappa's mouth. Those are not what he needs to think about right now. He needs to think about those he's trying to protect. He lets out a scream that he will never allow anyone else to die, and sit on the sides again. Flaring up his aura, the very shape of his ki changes from a wildfire to a wolf. For a brief second, in this instance, a shift in power comes, giving Yamcha the strength to hold his own against Nappa. But as Yamcha's new surge of strength comes, it fades, allowing Nappa to win the clash. But thanks to the tie for a few seconds, Yamcha does not lose his leg. Instead, he just breaks it, and also gets sent flying out of the battle, meaning it falls on both Chi-Chi and Yajirobe to step up. Chi-Chi rushes forwards, ducking below Nappa's next attempt to grab her, and delivers a jab to his liver as she passes by. As for Yajirobe, he jumps up and goes to cleave out Nappa's eyes with all of his strength. However, the brute simply catches the blade with his teeth, but this is more than enough of a distraction for Upa, as in 1 second he does what Yajirobe couldn't, jumping behind the big brute of a Saiyan, and with all the might he can muster, cutting through the spine, bringing down the oath of a Saiyan. While the Saiyan is alive, he is unable to move. However, that isn't a problem for much longer, as Upa, being one to finish his opponent, throws his spear through the head of the Saiyan, bringing this battle to an end. As Chi-Chi rushes over to Yamcha, handing out one of the 2 senzu beans they have on hand, getting the Desert Bandit back into the fight, thinking to at least save the last one for the last dire situation. Now with all the humans mostly back to 100%, Yajirobe and Upa being the only ones who are hurt and fatigued, while Chi-Chi is feeling a little bit of exertion, they begin getting into a flanking position, while Tien and Vegeta continue their skirmish. Tien, having the ability to sense ki, is able to tell the others are circling in, so ups his assault to better hold off Vegeta's attention, using his multiforms technique to split apart and dodge an oncoming attack from Vegeta. Tien having saved this technique for the very moment he needed it, as now facing 2 opponents, Vegeta is forced to divert his attention between them both, as suddenly both start spinning in the air to deliver the strongest kick they can muster up to the head of the Prince of all Saiyans. But it is cut shorter than the Prince, as he simply lifts both his arms and blocks the oncoming kicks with a chuckle, asking if that's the best he could muster. But Tien shouting out "now" alerts the Prince to something he hadn't noticed, as suddenly 4 fighters jump up from all sides, not having enough time to break down the power levels of the opponents in front of him. Vegeta has to get analytical, realising the fastest of the group is Yamcha, likely meaning he is the strongest of this group, while Upa's weapon hasn't been broken in 2, meaning it likely can cut through Saiyan armour, plus there's some blood on it. It needs to be stopped. These 2 are his biggest threats, so using Tien as a body shield, he puts one of the clones between himself and Upa, forcing the spear-wielding Z-fighter to pull back in order to avoid hurting Tien, while the other is used as an improvised weapon, being thrown at Yamcha to knock him out of the sky in a second. However, this allows both Chi-Chi and Yajirobe to come in, the pair both landing what they feel like are solid punches, but the prince just smiles, allowing his aura to knock them both away, shouting how that was a good plan, trying to gang up on him like that. The only issue is, when you put a maggot up against a super elite, the maggots will always lose, no matter how many of them there is. But he welcomes a challenge. It's clear that Vegeta isn't joking. They have already sensed the energy difference between them, and know that he could kill them with ease if he wanted to, especially after seeing how Tien is unable to deal any lasting damage, the most he could muster up being a bruise. This moment is enough to cause Yajirobe to turn tail and try to run. In this moment, Tien realises his biggest mistake as Yajirobe's teacher, as he realises he should have helped Yajirobe get over his fears. But Vegeta, smiling like a predator on the hunt, points its index fingers towards the samurai's head, wanting to watch the samurai's brains go pop with a dirty fireworks. But that's when he's suddenly smacked in the nose by the shaft of Upa's spear. While it does little to no damage, it messes up Vegeta's aim enough to only cost Yajirobe an ear, not a head. Vegeta goes to strike back, but he swears he can hear a creature growling behind him, as a sudden barrage of blows slams into his back, as Yamcha finishes his Wolf Fang Fist combo with a final strike, pushing Vegeta into unoccupied space. The Prince of All Saiyans doesn't get a chance to breathe, however, as from the ground she fell, Chi-Chi fires up a barrage of blasts upon Vegeta. The attacks doing nothing to Vegeta to hurt him, but masking the arrival of Tien, who comes in from above, delivering one powerful punch, sending Vegeta colliding into the ground, with his fist not being removed from Vegeta's face until both collide with the ground below them. However, not even a second passes before Vegeta is back on the offense and forcing the air out of Tien's lungs with a swift jab to the gut and firing a blast at Chi-Chi, causing her to be sent flying away. Upa and Yamcha go to play some offense, but are soon stopped by the force of Vegeta's expanding aura, forcing the humans to group back up together, as they are now forced to use all they have learned to stay alive in this battle, having Chi-Chi stay back applying pressure with blasts while the others rush in using Tien and Yamcha as a distraction so Upa can try and get a decisive strike, only for Vegeta to figure out this fast and break one of Upa's arms, making it much harder for the warrior to use his spear. However, the warrior continues fighting, slashing a cut across Vegeta's face. Next they try an all-out assault, having Chi-Chi join the close quarters combat to try and take down Vegeta, but in a 4v1 the group find themselves shockingly holding their own fairly well. Even if they aren't hurting Vegeta anywhere near as much as he is hurting them, the battle is much closer than even Vegeta would like to admit, enough to the point he is actively trying to kill any of them he can. No longer playing, but whenever he makes an opening to do so, someone covers his target, bringing the fight to a stalemate. Tien feels his mind drifting back to the thought of Gohan, wondering where the hell the boy is. Meanwhile, a few miles away from the battlefield, Gohan sits, following the battle with his ki sense. He worries deeply for his mum and uncle, but before he can resolve himself to join the fight, Raditz wakes up, not sure where he is, but spotting his nephew, he jumps up and takes a fighting stance. However, the boy doesn't even flinch at his uncle, instead recommending the man sit down, since he took a serious blow to the head, and from what he can tell he's got a broken rib. Raditz is confused, but before he can ask any questions, Gohan's resolve to join the battle solidifies, as he feels his mother take a powerful blow from Vegeta. He tells his uncle that he can stay here hidden until the fight's over to talk to his dad when he gets back on Earth and saves the day. Or he can leave the planet, it doesn't matter. All that matters is he makes his own decision, and he's not under the foot of anyone else anymore. Raditz cannot get a word in before Gohan's aura knocks him over, and the boy flies off at his top speed, joining the fight with a surprise attack, thrusting his foot into Vegeta's back, sending the prince into a punch from Tien, Gohan having joined the fight at the right time, as finally Upa's body gives out on him. As the man is now out of ki, Upa falls to the earth, clinging to consciousness by a thread, with Chi-Chi in hardly any better position, feeling her body start to fatigue. Tien, spotting this, calls for her to take Upa out of here and hide, but the woman refuses, saying that while her son is here, she will stay and fight and make sure he is okay. Tien wants to argue, but another gut check from Vegeta stops any words from leaving his mouth, bringing all their attention back to the fight at hand. Now with Gohan in the battle, the group's collective power actually exceeds that of Vegeta, to the point Vegeta is now having to fully pay attention in this fight, as the combination of Gohan and Tien is one that requires his full, unadulterated attention. Everything made worse by the added pressure of Chi-Chi and Yamcha, who, while can't do a lot of damage, are applying enough pressure that Vegeta is having to take every second of this fight seriously, unless he wants to take some serious damage. Something which drives the Prince insane, as he is getting pushed closer and closer to the edge, and finally is pushed over it when an uppercut from Gohan draws blood. A low-born hybrid managed to damage an elite. He is no longer interested in whatever battle Kakarot could pose, whatever resources this planet has to offer. He grabs Gohan by the leg, throwing him into his mother and fires a ki blast to keep them down. Using his tail, he grabs Yamcha's oncoming attack by the leg and pulls him into striking distance and delivers an elbow strike to the nose, before once again using the former Desert Bandit as a shield from Tien's oncoming flurry of blows, before taking to the sky, ready to destroy this planet with a Gallic gun. The humans pull themselves to their feet. Tien, spotting the oncoming attack, knows they need to stop it, and while a tri-beam will stop the attack, it would also eliminate him from the fight, and possibly end his life, while maybe not even killing Vegeta. The risk is too big. Instead, he trusts his best friend's signature move. Getting into the pose of a Kamehameha, those still standing rally around him, everyone charging the same blast. As both beams are released, the humans fire the final stand Kamehameha. The attacks combine into one beam, which clashes against the strength of Vegeta's Gallic gun. For a second, it looks like Vegeta's blast might just cut through their attack, but suddenly the two beams stabilise, revealing they are actually in a deadlock. Unluckily for our heroes, it's only for a second, as having given all her energy to the initial push, Chi-Chi is now completely out of energy, as she falls to her knees, no longer able to aim the beam. This allows Vegeta to gain the advantage, pushing the blast down till it's mere inches away from engulfing the Earthlings. The only thing keeping them alive is the sheer force of fucking will that is only buying them mere seconds as Vegeta's blast inches closer and closer. Tien starts to accept his fate, apologising, as the pressure of the struggle is starting to take its toll on Yamcha. Tien looks across everyone and apologises to Goku, praying that he gets here and finishes this Saiyan. But then a power appears, which for a second Tien mistakes for the man, as suddenly the pressure of the beam struggle is lifted, as Gohan screams out that he will not let anyone hurt his family. His power surges massively, forcing back the Gallic gun enough to give our hero some breathing room, and this is all Tien needs. Having spotted how similar this beam is to the Kamehameha, he knows how to beat this beam struggle, sprouting out two more arms using the Four Witches technique. He charges up and fires two Super Dodon Rays, an attack which not only begins to cut through the Gallic gun like it would for the Kamehameha, but sends a cold shiver down the spine of Upa. The Dodon Ray's piercing power shocks Vegeta, as having no way to sense the attack coming, he is suddenly surprised when the two blasts appear through his own and slam into his chest with enough force to knock out some of the air in his lungs. This moment of flinching gives our heroes the last ditch effort they need, as Tien shouts for everyone to make their Kamehamehas explode, something all of them do quickly, and thanks to the explosion now showering the battlefield in a bright light, it also disrupts the Gallic gun. Vegeta is furious, wanting nothing more than to wipe all of them off the face of the planet. In fact, he can see none of them have any fight left in them. Maybe the small child, but that's it. So, gathering all of his energy, he throws down another blast at the very fatigued group of fighters, none of which have the energy to stop it. But the blast never arrives. In fact, it disappears into the sky, having been knocked away by a sudden blur of orange, as Vegeta and the human warriors all look to who their saviour is. Goku stands with a smile, apologising for being late. And that's where this part will end for now. I do hope everyone enjoyed this part. I struggled writing it for a little bit, but in the end I'm very happy with the outcome. The next part will be treated like an Act 2, so it'll probably still be Part 4 Act 2, just because it simplifies everything. And this series is already running a bit longer than I had originally intended it to do. I was hoping to be a bit further along in the arcs by Part 4, but I just get carried away with writing, you know how I get. But But yeah, so I hope everyone enjoyed this part. I wanted to show that human Z Fighter is very capable without Goku, and I want to make sure that you understand their displays of power. I'm sure some people will disagree with the power levels I've given everyone and other little things, and I think Goku is going to be a bit of a wake-up call for some people. But for the most part, I very much just used math that I had available to me. So if people aren't the best thrilled with how it turned out, let me know what you think everyone should have had power level wise. If you think I went too high or too low, I think Tien will be the most controversial one. But I also think Tien was the one who's training the hardest, and on screen I have given my math and my reasoning, so hopefully that satisfies everyone. But that all being said, I do hope everyone enjoyed this part and is looking forward to the next part. I love this series, it's super fun, and I'm very happy I can keep writing for it. That all being said, I hope everyone has a great day or a good night, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye for now, guys.